Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back to Raptors Flex Plus. I am your host, Kyle. Yeah. And we got a special video for y'all today. We're about to go back to that barbershop talk, man, because the conversation started up again just recently when I was just going through the internet trying to figure out what's popping with the Raptors because, different perspectives on all the different storylines that are out there. But a familiar one popped back up that we've all had if you're a Raptors fan. Does Kawhi Leonard deserve a statue in Toronto? All right. So, for context, let me just share with y'all the article in which this is coming from. This one is from dailyhive.com and it is written by Adam Lescaris a couple of days ago. And basically, what he did was he looked at a basketball podcast that's popping right now, and the conversation came up. So, NBA players debate whether Raptors should give Kawhi Leonard a statue. So, we're going to run through this real quick. Does Kawhi Leonard deserve a statue for his one season with the Toronto Raptors? At least one pair of NBA players seem to think so. Coming to the Raptors from the San Antonio Spurs in a high-profile trade centered around DeMar DeRozan, Jakob Poeltl back in 2018. Leonard had the most legendary, I'm saying the word legendary because we're going to talk about it, one-and-done season in NBA history. Despite, I don't know what's up with this website, despite playing only 1 year in Toronto on an expiring contract, Leonard was able to lead the franchise to its first NBA title back in 2019, picking up a finals MVP trophy along the way before ultimately departing for the Los Angeles Clippers in free agency. Speaking with longtime NBA veteran Theo Pinson on his Run Your Race podcast on the Title League Network. Theo Pinson also played for North Carolina Tar Heels. That's my college team. Brooklyn Nets forward Cam Johnson made his case for Leonard one day earning a statue outside of Scotiabank Arena. He really pulled up to Toronto, didn't speak, won a chip, and dipped. He was like, "I appreciate y'all. It's nice doing business. I'm going to go about my business." That's legendary. Legends get statues, Johnson said. Context is key here. How geeked was the city of Toronto to bring a championship to that city in the manner that he did against the powerhouse of the Warriors? That Toronto championship is legendary. It's all how a city feels about you. I think he does. No doubt about it. He came in, got you a dub, got you a championship, and dominated. Listen, what more does the man have to do? Pinson added. The Clippers are next slated to visit the Raptors, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So that is the article. Okay. So Theo Pinson and Cam Johnson basically discussing whether Kawhi Leonard deserves a statue in Toronto. So I'm going to address this from my point of view, okay? Because everyone's going to have their own point of view on this. Some will agree, some will disagree, but at the end of the day, it's still a compelling conversation that we've all had in the barbershop, barbecues, just chilling at a lime, whatever it is, right? Does Kawhi Leonard deserve a statue in Toronto? So Cam Johnson and Theo Pinson said it was a legendary effort. Legendary, right? And legends deserve statues. So let's start by at least just understanding what is a legend. Okay, this is based on I think it's dictionary.com. A legend, traditional story, sometimes popularly regarded as historical but unauthenticated. Interesting definition there, right? There's a second part to it. An extremely famous or notorious person, especially in a particular field. Okay. My opinion. Let's start with what Kawhi Leonard did here in Toronto. All right. I know this is just like regular stuff to everybody. Everybody knows what he did. But let's just remind us so that we can have the conversation, okay? Kawhi Leonard came to Toronto in the trade from DeMar DeRozan for DeMar DeRozan and Jakob Poeltl, right? Danny Green came along with him. The season prior with the Spurs, he had beef with the Spurs, right? Because he was saying that he had an injury, and the Spurs were like, yo, our doctors are saying that you're good enough to play. And then there was some ray-tay-tay within the team. I remember Tony Parker may have said something of sorts. I mean, that's their business. At the end of the day, he was traded to Toronto after playing, I believe it was 9 or 11 games the season prior in San Antonio. All right. He got to Toronto. He played 60 games. All right. And a lot of that was load management. Okay. I know the Spurs were doing load management prior, but I feel like this stint here in Toronto really popularized it because Kawhi Leonard was able to help the Raptors deliver the city his first championship. During that regular season, in the 60 games that he played, he averaged 26.6 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 3.3 assists. He was named an All-Star, all right? 2 Eastern Conference Player of the Week twice, All Defensive Second Team, All NBA Second Team, Finals MVP, along with bringing the Raptors a championship. And within that time, he had buzzer beaters in the regular season. He had the most famous buzzer beater against the Sixers in Toronto, Game 7 of the conference semifinals, the first ever walk-off buzzer in a Game 7. Buzzer beater in a Game 7. Sounds pretty legendary to me. Sounds pretty legendary to me. You know what I'm saying? And then they're like no lies detected. They say, yo, he got the chip and then he dipped. So a lot of the times with statues, there's still the part that we talk about that has tenure and longevity tied to it. Generally, these are players that have played with the franchise for quite some significant time, and they've done things where, you know, you might get put in a ring of honor, they might retire your number. Like, those are generally the type of players that get statues. Not everybody gets a statue, and this is a very unique case because he literally delivered Toronto its first championship in the NBA in the history of the franchise. Now, I know it's a team effort. It's not like Kawhi was just out there. There's 5 Kawhis on the floor. There's one Kawhi, and then the team, Bobby Webster and Masai Ujiri, built a perfect team around him, right? And let's not forget, the Raptors were just struggling to get over the hump in the playoffs for years prior, leading up to that when Larry and DeRozan was the main core, your star players on that team. So what Kawhi Leonard was able to do, I would say that that's some legendary stuff. It's based on the definitions. Traditional stories, sometimes popularly regarded. Like that's a story that's popularly regarded because we have this conversation all the time. Just because these guys are now on a podcast, 2 NBA players having this conversation, it doesn't mean that, you know, we haven't had that conversation as Raptors fans. You know what I mean? Now, here's the thing for me, all right? I haven't actually answered the question yet. Did he do legendary things in Toronto? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Did he leave like a little bit of a punk? Hey, man, that's his business. But out here in Toronto, out here in Canada, we feel like, yo, the man should have stayed. You should have stayed. You should have stayed and defended your championship like normal teams do. You know? But when we traded for him, it was also under the impression that this would be a 1-season rental. So now that we go to win the chip now, you think, hey, man, that's going to change this guy's mind state. You have to come back, even if it's just like a little 2-year contract, you know, 1 year, second year is the player option. I think a lot of us would have ran with that. And let's not lie. The following season, the Raptors had the second best record in the Eastern Conference, took Boston to Game 7 in the bubble. A lot of us feel like if we weren't in the bubble and we had that game at home, that might have been a way different story that season. We would have been back in the conference finals. But, you can't really live like that. Right? We would have did this. We could have did this if that would have happened and this would have happened. The fact is that we had an opportunity to do it. And if Kawhi Leonard was on the team, we all feel like there was a real possibility of going back to back. All right? Now, does Kawhi Leonard deserve a statue in Toronto? I'm not ready to answer the question yet. This is really what I think the Raptors should do. Okay? I'm going to show y'all a picture. For anybody that is not, familiar with Scotiabank Arena, maybe you don't live in Toronto, somewhere else in Canada or somewhere else in the world. Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment owns the Raptors. They own the Toronto Maple Leafs. Okay? Now, the Toronto Maple Leafs have had a long history in this city. Very long history. They've been around for a lot longer than the Raptors. So they have a storied history. Okay? What Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment has done is they have set up something called Legends Row. Let me add it to the scene here. They have set up something called Legends Row outside of Scotiabank Arena. And basically what it is 14 statues of important figures, important players in Toronto Maple Leafs history. Okay? Now, I don't know all of these guys because I'm not like the biggest hockey guy. There are some names that, I'm familiar with. Johnny Bauer, I believe he is responsible for the skates. He might not be. I may be way off of that. I'm trying here because I'm not a big hockey guy. Daryl Sittler, I know his name. Matt Sundin, I know very well because that's my era. Couldn't get the job done in the playoffs. Wendell Clark, also my era when I was a kid. I remember these guys. But the point stands. They have 14 statues of legendary figures throughout Toronto Maple Leafs history outside Scotiabank Arena. So, what does that mean in terms of me answering this question? I think the Raptors should take a similar approach and create, and it doesn't need to be called Legends Row. It could be called, I don't know. Someone else can come up with the idea in terms of what to call it or coin it. But we should come up with a statue of important figures throughout Toronto Raptors history. And you can keep adding to it. It's not like, you have to have 14 guys right off the bat. We have a lot less history of NBA in this city, despite the first ever NBA game being played at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. And I believe it was 1946, might have been something like that, 1960 something. Anyways, the Raptors, we don't have as long of a history as the Toronto Maple Leafs. But let's do something like this. Why can't we do something like this? I think this is fair, right? Now, who would I have in here? I will answer this for y'all. Vince Carter, the first superstar that the Raptors ever had for this franchise. Put basketball on the map in Canada. Beer players that now play in the league say that, when they were a youth, they got into basketball because of Vince Carter. A lot of fans now that are around my age, which I'm not going to give out, but around my age, just started getting into basketball because of the Vince Carter era. Now, mind you, I was around from 95. I was there from Mighty Mouse, you know what I'm saying? But, because we weren't that good of a team, my fandom really took off with Vince Carter. No lies. My fandom took off, and I think a lot of us out there can attest to that. Dunk contest, won us, which was legendary, by the way. You had to be there type of thing. Because you can watch the replays right now on NBA TV, And it's not hitting the same unless you were there for that era. You didn't even have to be in the stadium. You could have been at home, on your couch, wherever. That was like the illest dunk off in the history of dunk offs, at least for my era. Fire. Won us our first, well, he was the best player on the team when we won our first playoff series against the Knicks. The year prior, we lost to them. We got swept the year prior. Then we came back the next year and won 3-2 in Madison Square Garden, game 5, because back then you only played 5 games in the first round. Some of you kids might not even know that, but that's a real fact. And the way that he left was sour. I get that. But Vince Carter needs a statue, and you can choose any which one of his highlight dunks. It doesn't matter to me because they're all going to look ill. They're all going to look fire. Vince Carter won. The next statue I would do a combination statue. Kyle Lowry, which a lot of us regard as the greatest Raptor of all time, and DeMar DeRozan. DeMar DeRozan. The sacrificial lamb, Bridget. The sacrificial lamb, because that championship may not have happened if we didn't make that trade for Kawhi Leonard. Now, I know that team, including DeMar, wishes that they could have run it back because LeBron left the East that year. Right? The year that DeMar got traded, LeBron James went to the West. And before that, it was like, yo, you had to try to run through LeBron. LeBron had like 9 straight NBA Finals appearances. Like, it was just insane what he was doing in the East. So those guys wish that they could have had a chance. But DeMar DeRozan is the leading scorer in Toronto Raptors franchise history. The leading scorer. This guy embraced being in Toronto. He was like the first Raptor that was drafted that signed like 3 contracts with the Raptors. Because prior to that, you had mans leaving after they got their first max extension. Then when they're eligible for like their biggest contract, they're out of here. I.e. Chris Bosh. Other mans got traded. Mighty Mouse wanted out of here. Camby wanted out of here. DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, that era of basketball was also our most successful era in basketball in terms of wins, regular season, playoff series wins. I know we've had some disappointments in the playoffs against the Wizards, disappointment, Brooklyn, disappointment, the Cavs 3 times. Like, yeah, lots of disappointment. But the We the North era started with Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan. And that deserves some respect. Lastly, I'm only going 4 here. I think that Kawhi Leonard deserves a statue in Toronto, guys. Now, he doesn't deserve it all by himself. Like, you know, it's just him and nobody else gets a statue. If he's going in with like a Legends Row type thing, like how the Maple Leafs did, that Game 7 shot against the Sixers where he got into a B-boy stance. Yo, that's hard. Or you can do it when his arm is up like that. Whatever y'all want to do. But I think those 4 players together in a legendary row, because, I mean, just that time alone is legendary. It's notorious, man. Like, the guy is synonymous with Toronto in terms of our only championship. You can't talk about that championship without talking about Kawhi Leonard. I know it's a small thing, but you know that little gold tab that's on the back of the jerseys for teams that have actually won a championship? Like, those little small details, I appreciate. I'm happy that we have a gold tab on the back of our jerseys because we have won. Woo! So yeah, man, just to recap, Vince Carter, singular statue. It's not Kawhi Leonard. Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan have a statue together of some sort. Symbolizes that era perfectly. And then Kawhi Leonard. Those are my 4 statues for the Toronto Raptors. So, yo. What do y'all think, man? What do y'all think? Please leave a comment down low. Let's talk about it. Does Kawhi Leonard deserve a statue outside Scotiabank Arena? It's a real talk conversation. And I don't think anyone is wrong or right either which way. This is just my opinion as an individual. I feel like I came with a healthy compromise for everybody, because all these people just keep talking about, like, yo, put up a statue for Kawhi Leonard. And they're just not talking about Vince Carter, Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan. Those are three other very important figures in Toronto Raptors history. And 50 years down the road, when I'm an old man, I could tell my grandchildren stories about these guys. And maybe along the way, we add another player or two. But I believe it should start with those 4 players. So if you reach the end of this video, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Let's extend the conversation. Comment down low. Let's talk. I'll respond back. It's all love. It's all love. I will respond back. But don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And yeah, man, that's about it. That's about it. That's my take on whether Kawhi Leonard deserves a statue or not. So, again, I appreciate you. You know the flex. It's your boy, and I'm out.